Hey guys, in today's video, I want to show you 5 easy techniques you can use to create amazing, realistic looking fur in watercolor painting using only a round brush. Technique number 1, wet and wet. This first technique is one of my favorite ways to start a painting and is a fantastic effect for painting really soft fur edges for cats and puppies, for example. To create effortless, diffused, fuzzy edges, just grab a medium to large round brush and start by wetting the paper in the area you want to paint. Extend the clean water a little beyond your sketch or even all the way to the border of your paper. The goal with this technique is to drop in the paint and let it spread naturally into the area of paper that is wet. I used this technique to put down my initial washes of color on this fox painting. While the paper was still wet, I dropped in yellow ochre and burnt sienna, then painted the blue background colors on the still wet paper right up next to the fox. The colors bleed and blend on the wet paper without my help at all, and the edge looks perfectly soft. I used the same technique for the ears on this St. Bernard puppy. It's so much fun to watch the paint spread and bloom, forming perfectly fuzzy fur along the edge. Technique number 2, use short, quick brush strokes. You can use this technique both wet and wet and wet and dry. The results will look a little bit different depending on how wet your paper is. For this baby monkey, that first light wash of burnt sienna on the head was still damp when I began to use those short, quick brush strokes with burnt umber on my round brush to add more defined fur to the top of the head. This is a great technique to use as a second layer. As it begins to dry, you can see that the paint has softened quite a bit, but there are still clear marks where the brush strokes were placed. When you do this technique on a dry surface, what you see is what you get. The paint won't move at all. Using these short brush strokes is a great way to add final details to a painting, perhaps as a third or fourth layer. Here you can see I'm adding these fine details with a small round brush to the fox. It's important to note that you should always move your brush in the direction you see the fur growing. For example, on this coonhound puppy, the fur is growing in a curved direction, following the contours of the skull around the eyes. So I move my brush in short, gentle, curved motions to make the fur look realistic. Oh, by the way, if you're finding this video entertaining and helpful, please hit that like button now and leave me a comment below. It really helps me out and allows me to continue making more videos like this. Okay, moving on. Technique number 3, use long, slender brush strokes. Sometimes the fur on an animal is long and shaggy, like you see on this Highland cow. In that case, you need to match your brush strokes to the shapes of those chunks of fur using longer, thinner brush strokes. Hold your brush at about a 45-degree angle and try to allow your hand to rest on something. That always helps. You need to visualize each brush stroke before making your mark, and then try to create your line in one long, swooping brush stroke. Having a good pencil sketch first definitely helps with your confidence here. The fur on top of this Wheaten Terrier puppy's head also required some longer, more gently curved brush strokes. And you would use this same technique to paint whiskers with gouache. It's important to have a good quality brush for this technique because you need your brush to be able to hold a good amount of paint and keep its point. I really like Silver Black Velvet, Princeton Neptune, and Escoda round brushes. Technique number 4, spread out the bristles. This technique is hard on your brushes, but it yields a great result. I like to use my synthetic bristle brushes for this. Cheaper brushes are best because you don't feel as bad smashing them down. To do this technique, just load up your brush with paint and then smash the bristles down on your palette, separating them out. I used this method to paint the tiny fur texture on this lion's chin and above his nose. I really use this technique a lot for areas on an animal like the nose and the muzzle. The St. Bernard puppy has lots of fuzzy texture on his nose, so I splayed the bristles of my brush to add that texture along the edge where the white fur and black fur are touching. Technique number 5, dry brush technique. Dry brush technique involves using a paintbrush that is mostly dry but still holds damp paint. Your paper should be completely dry for this technique. You can apply the paint any way you want, either by using the tip of your round brush, or by spreading out the bristles, or by scraping the belly of your brush along the surface of the paper. This creates a scratchy, bristly look because the brush is actually catching the texture of the paper and missing some areas. I love to use this technique for areas of fur that are very short, like on the muzzle of this lion and on certain areas in this fox's coat. Fur is so much fun to paint because there's so many ways you can achieve the look you want, and of course, There's an endless variety in the textures and colors you can explore. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and check out these other videos on painting fur in watercolor.